Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Today, we're going to get into our team breakdowns. We're going to talk about the Orlando Magic, the San Antonio Spurs, the summers that they had. Before we get to that, we do have a few news topics to dive into. And, of course, a reminder to make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Don't forget to go find the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. I'm Trevor Lane. Joining me, as always, is Keith Smith. Keith, how are you doing? Starting a new week. Here we are. We're into August, and at least we have basketball tonight. Like that to me, that's exciting.
Yeah, we've got the Team USA what are we World Cup warm-ups, whatever we want to
Mm-hmm.
call those.
I'll take
Yeah,
it.
we get that to watch tonight. I'm absolutely gonna watch that. They it was funny. There was like they were talking about how they struggled against the select team, I guess
Mm-hmm.
the first day, and then I guess they put an absolute beating on them the last couple of days. So that's good news. But yeah, man, we got the World Cup coming in about what 3-ish weeks or so, well 2.5 weeks, and we'll have that, and yeah, everything else is on this side. It's just we're gearing up to get ready for school. It's I'm happy to be here talking ball with you because I spent the day. I had to go to 3 different Targets to buy a very specific folder that the school needed, and the first 2 did not have it, despite saying that they did online. So that's always fun.
Come on, schools. If you're going to demand some type of material, like a certain kind of poster board or whatever, at least make it the kind that is readily available
Yes,
everywhere. Don't make us drive all over the
and
place
can be
trying to
just
find it.
ordered off Amazon or something,
Right?
but
Right?
it is
Come
what
on.
it is. We tracked it down, we found it, and we're good.
All right. Well, the day's errands are complete, or at least on pause for
Yeah,
now, so we can talk
they're half complete.
basketball.
Yep.
half complete, half pushed to tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. We
That's
there's definitely some of that that's going to happen too.
Yep. That's been me for the last, I don't know, few years. All right, let's get into this. So a little more detail coming out on Anthony Davis's contract. He does have a player options I put on here apparently, but he has a player option,
It is just
singular,
one.
just one option. The final year of his deal. So this would be the 5th year of the contract, and that will allow him to either opt in or not to that final year of his contract. Now, that from the team perspective, typically player options are a bad thing. From the player's perspective, they're a good thing because they provide a little bit more control there for the player. Um, does this change the value of Davis's deal at all, or how you feel about the Lakers going through with this?
Yeah, not really. I think he will hold value enough that it doesn't really matter unless, by the time we get to that 5th year, if he is so injured that he can't play anymore or anything, then it starts to get kind of messy. But I'm not worried about that part of it at all, really. I think it'll be just fine. And it's kind of going practice, right? The Lakers have been very free with player options over the years, especially under Rob Pelinka with their guys. So this doesn't really surprise me. It doesn't change. I think it's still a great extension for the Lakers, great for Davis, and nothing really changes here. Maybe slightly leans it a little bit more in his favor, which is fine.
And looking over here on Spot Track, it is a 66.8 million estimated option. Of course, that is, as we've talked about many times on Lakers Nation, we talked about as well here on the front office show last Friday when this news hit. It's dependent on how much the cap goes up. That's going to determine how much Anthony Davis makes. People run around and say, "Wait, how is he making 186 million when just the other day it was 168? Why are the numbers flip flopping and all that?" It depends on what projection you're following. It's tied to a percentage of the cap. So that's
Yep.
why you're going to see different numbers out there. But the rough estimate, at least the one that Keith you've got here on Spot Track, 66.8 million. Not bad work if you can get it.
Yeah, and that'll actually probably come down just a bit because I think that is the full
Mm-hmm.
amount if it goes up to 10% because I are a guy who helps plug all those in, and you can see that his player option is missing from the 24th, 25th. I think we're in progress on that update. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's going to be somewhere in that final year between like 63 and 66 million and change.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my guess is, probably personal thought, probably closer to that 66, but we'll see.
His cap hold for that next year is 70.2 million.
Yep.
Good
That's
Lord, we're
yeah.
hitting that's
Yep.
the world we're gonna be living, $70.2 million
Yep.
cap holds. The Lakers also this isn't a surprise, or this isn't like an earth-shattering update, but they're still interested in Christian Wood, according to Mark Stein. Dan Moike had a piece, in the LA Times the other day about the Lakers still being interested and believing that they can be despite 7 teams not making it work with Christian Wood, that they can be the 8th team and really make it work. That's their thought process anyway. But they do still have interest in him. Of course, Christian Wood prefer to not take a veteran minimum contract, so the wait continues. And again, I still believe this is all just kind of being held up by Damian Lillard and what's going to happen on the trade front there, and whether or not that shakes loose. Number one, dollars, or number two, minutes on somebody's rotation somewhere.
Yeah, and if I'm Christian Wood, I'm leaning towards get me in a good situation where I can really show, hey, I can play, I can be a big part of winning. His numbers last year were really good.
Mm-hmm.
16.6 points. He was at about 7 rebounds per game, a little over a block per game. Shooting splits were strong. Like I'm estimating it's around 52, 38, like probably 70 something, been still 4 free throw attempts per game, good amount of 3-pointers per game. Offensively, have no worries. Defensively, gets a little lost at times, but I think if you put him in a good system, he'll be better. And if he has more to play for, he should be better as well. Because clearly, what's going to happen with the Lakers is if he's not doing what he's supposed to do defensively, just won't play. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll sit him. And I think I think it was in Dan Boyke's piece, he referenced, look, the Lakers are also being very realistic. They know there are going to be nights. AD's not going to play. LeBron's not
Mm-hmm.
going to play. Someone has to score those nights. Well, Christian Wood can certainly do that, right? Those would be the nights where that's when you're like, this is why we have D'Angelo Russell. This is why we have Christian Wood, because they're going to take 20 shots apiece, and we hope we outscore the other team and win that way. So yeah, I think that'd be a great spot for him. The money is not going to be so different for him. The chances of a sign and trade that get him,
Yeah.
12, 15 million, those are probably gone. I don't think that's coming. Maybe a team throws him a part of an exception, maybe, but I think we're more looking, you're playing for the minimum, and it's, go pick the right spot for you, show what you can do, and then get back out there and get the bigger contract, kind of like Dennis Schroeder did, where, showed, hey, I can still play. Really productive year last year with the Lakers, and then cashed in for 2 years on the non-taxpayer Emily with the Raptors.
Now, if it was a sign and trade, it would have to be a 3-year deal, right? But can't you kind of, I don't know, isn't it kind of a loophole where you could just make the second 2 years like non-guaranteed?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's generally that has come into play with guys who are just being thrown into a sign and trade to make the math work. That was the old Keith Bogan's play where he
That's
was
right.
tossed into a deal just to make the math work. So yeah, we'll see if that's kind of something. My guess is that's not anything, because I just don't know that Dallas is trying to do anything big
Mm-hmm.
at this point. So I think we're kind of at the point for the Mavs. They've yeah, fine if a sign and trade comes up and it benefits them in any way. Maybe if they could move Tim Hardaway Jr. in the same sign and trade or something, maybe they do it. But I think Dallas is looking at it as, yeah, our roster's pretty well complete. We're going to move on, and good luck figuring it out. We're here if you kind of need us to help it along.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. All right, let's move on from the Christian Wood. Keith, I've said the name Christian Wood so many times this offseason so far, and I know it's going to continue happening until some type of decision is made one way or another. But let's move on a little bit, and I hate to do it, but let's go to a negative story here.
Yeah.
Vlatko Konchar, torn ACL. We talked about this a little bit last week. Banged knees with Luka. Fortunately, Luka seems like he's going to be just fine.
Luka, he to be clear, he didn't bang knees with Luka. Was playing on Luka's team. They were both on Slovenia. Luka did bang
I
knees.
Right. I
Conchar
understood.
was
I thought they ran into each other. I didn't see the play. I thought they
yeah.
ran into each other on the play.
Yeah, no, thankfully, no. He came down on semi like 2-on-1 breakaway,
Oh, okay.
and he took the ball right down the middle, dunked, and landed very awkwardly on his left leg and went down. You could see his left ankle roll, which you're hoping, right? All right, hopefully that's what it is. Sounds weird, but that's what you're hoping for.
Right.
But he grabbed right away for the knee and torn left ACL. So he's gonna miss the season, unfortunately. He's kind of this year's Danilo Gallinari, it looks like. And really unfortunate for the Nuggets because Chanchar was going to play a lot for them. They were going to kind of slide him into the Jeff Green role, it looked like, and say, all right, hey, you're going to be the big man off the bench for us and play quite a bit. And now that's clearly not going to be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's terrible news. Obviously,
Yeah.
terrible for Denver. And Denver, you lose Bruce Brown, and you could use somebody that can step in here, but he will not be able to.
I
Another
did
player,
just one. I'm
yeah.
sorry. One last quick thing on that. A couple people asked on Twitter, so I'll repeat it here. Hey, will they go for a disabled player exception? He only makes 2.2 million, so it'd only be a 1.1 million one. So, I mean, maybe just so you kind of have it in the back pocket, and maybe that ends up more than you could pay a guy minimum. By the time we get there, I'd have to actually run that math on the prorated minimums and everything, but it's right in range. So my guess is probably not.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where you can apply for it and get it because it's not going to really cost you much to do that,
Yep,
but it's unlikely you'd actually be able to use it.
exactly.
All right, Ricky Rubio announced he is stepping away from basketball to focus on his mental health. Rubio, what is he, 32, 33 now? And so he's going to step away from basketball for, this is a guy who's been playing high level basketball since he was a teenager, right? I mean,
14. Yeah.
he's
Yep.
been a sensation over in Europe, comes over to the US. He's been playing basketball for a long, long, long time. And this is his chance now to step away and focus on himself. And this is, just another step forward in terms of recognizing the importance of mental health, and Rubio just saying, look, this is something that I need to do for me. And, I don't know if this means the end of Ricky Rubio's career in the NBA, or what's ultimately going to happen with him. But hopefully he gets everything sorted out that he needs to, and then can make that decision at the appropriate time.
Yeah, it sounds like by all accounts, Spain is preparing for him not to come back and return in time for the World Cup. Important to note, they're the defending champions, I believe, for the World Cup. And Rubio, I think, if I remember right, was the MVP of that World Cup. So, well, that's tough, right? To not have him there. Lorenzo Brown, who's a naturalized player for Spain, he's from the United States, but I believe has Spanish parents or grandparents. He's out as well. So that's two guards that are going to be down going into this tournament. So that's tough for them. And then we don't know what this means for Rubio and the Cavs. We have no sense yet of,
Mhm.
busy basically saying, hey, I need to take the rest of the summer. I'll be back. Or the Cavs going to say, hey, we'll see you when we see you, a little bit later. What I am wondering now for that Cavs team, they have two open roster spots still, standard spots. My guess is one of those has to go to a point guard, right? They have to go
Right.
get some form of veteran point guard because Darius Garland's awesome. Donovan Mitchell can obviously slide over and play the point. You can put the ball in Karis LeVert's hand quite a bit to be a playmaker. That's kind of it for them, for guys on the guard line that are established NBA level guys. So it wouldn't be surprising, maybe a guy like Ish Smith, if you grab him and say, hey, come on in, and you could be our third point guard, until backup for now, and then third point guard when and if Rubio returns. But good for Ricky Rubio for feeling like, hey, I gotta do this. And like we said, I mean, this guy, he does. You're right on with his age. He turns 33 in October, right around the start of the season, and he's been playing professionally since he was 14. So that's 19 years of basketball for him, and that's I mean, we talk about, right, LeBron's up in the 20s now, and a number of years playing. Like Rubio's not far
Mhm.
behind that, just as a younger guy.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the list of potential free agent targets that are a point guard, I mean, Kendrick Nunn, he's going to find a deal
Mhm.
overseas. We were hearing about that recently. You've got, Ish Smith. Maybe he's the best fit there. Um, Man, Matthew Dellavedova, George Hill, Michael Carter Williams, DJ Augustine, Shaq Harrison. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot
Yeah,
out
it's
there
not
on the
much.
point guard market
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
So,
I mean, it's not much out there. Period.
period. Of
But
course, any
definitely, yeah,
market. Yeah,
point
yeah.
guards is pretty rough.
Right.
Right now.
Yep.
So
So that'll be tough.
definitely rough.
That will be tough for them. All right. Speaking of point guards, Trae Young, not happy that he was left off of Team USA. Reports circulated that he would have liked to have played. I believe it was our pal Mark Stein who was mentioning that Trae Young just didn't really fit the style of guard that the U.S. was looking for kind of the tough, rugged two-way type guards. It's where you've got guys like Tyrese Halliburton, like Jalen Brunson, players like that, Austin Reeves, of course, in the mix as well. They've got these kind of two-way style guards. But is this, are we hitting the point where Trae Young is like underrated? Is that kind of where, because like he's a really, really good player. A little surprising to hear somebody of his caliber saying, "Oh no, I wanted to play, but Team USA didn't want me."
Yeah, I think so. I, this could be one of those two. I don't know if they're afraid there are other guys not going to want to play. And clearly I don't know if that's the case, meaning not going to want to play with Trae Young. We know, we've all seen the stories. He's not the most well-liked guy by
Sure.
some of his peers in the league. So, and if we go, then no, I'm going to, our regular
I
show
know,
reference to make us old
I know where you're
back in the
going.
day. Nobody wanted to play with Isaiah Thomas back
Yep.
in the day, so he wasn't on the original Dream Team because guys like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, reportedly maybe Larry Bird said, "Hey, if he's going to be there, we're not coming." So Clyde
And they
Drexler, I
replaced him
think,
with
was
Stockton, right?
yeah, yep, John
Yeah, that's
Stockton they
right.
put in. Everybody's like, yeah, that's fine. We don't really care. And then remember, if you remember in the lead up, Stockton broke his leg. So they played
Hmm.
without him in the lead up to the Olympics for a little while. And there was all this stuff. Well, will he get replaced? And they were like, no, keep him on there with the broken leg. Because I think they were also like, we don't really need him. Like, we're
Yeah.
fine, So, but yeah, so I mean, there could be some of that. I think Mark Stein's thing was really good on it, where he wrote today in his newsletter, which everybody should be signing up for if you're not already. It's really, really good stuff. But he wrote in there about how Grant Hill, the thought was Atlanta Hawks part owner Grant Hill, broadcaster Grant Hill might say, yeah, let's bring him in. Like, I know, like, it'll be fine to bring him in. And he said Grant Hill obviously clearly has control over who's going to play for Team USA if he's not bringing in the guy from the team he's a part owner
Hmm.
of. So we'll see. My guess is, this might be a little message to Trae Young of like, hey, let's clean up some of the other stuff that, maybe is, holding you back. And maybe we'll look at, bringing you into a team in the future. Because clearly the talent wise, he should
Sure.
be there. Like he, is one of the better players. And I'm kind of wondering with this Olympics coming up, next year, Steph Curry's kind of talked about maybe playing. There's been a couple of the older guys who are like, yeah, maybe I could do it one more time. I'm kind of wondering if it's like, yeah, let's load up with, the real veteran guys, last chance guys for one last run at this. But we'll see. I mean, a lot of guys say that, and then you get in close, and it's like, I'm going to give up my whole summer. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Families are saying we want to go to
Yeah,
an island vacation or something,
yeah.
and that that gets to be tough. But I do want to, like, fantasy basketball wise, is this just more evidence that revenge season Trae Young coming? Right. I mean,
It could be.
he's got to be upset, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be shocked if he's out there, basically takes it as like, all right, I'm going to prove it to everybody, So let's kind of go from there. So yeah, it wouldn't be surprising.
All right. Last thing we've got on this, there were a lot of reports about how great Cade Cunningham looked playing with Team. He was on the select team, which was used to play against Team USA, and he looked, especially like you said, that first day. But the reviews have been very, very strong about him. Jalen Durant also had just a really nice combination between the two. So
Yeah.
some really good news for Piston fans and, of course, NBA fans in general, because you want to see good players playing basketball. But for the Pistons specifically, great news that he's out there playing at an extremely high level. Team USA wanted him on the team, but he's focusing on rehabbing from that leg injury and getting back to full strength. Didn't want to commit that much of his summer, but it sure sounds like he's playing at a level where, if he wanted to, he would easily be on Team USA.
Yeah, and it sounds like part of it was Team USA wanted him, and maybe the Pistons might have shut that down and said,
Hmm.
"Hey, after coming off a lost year, we want to make sure we're doing everything right by him." But all signs are pointing to Cade Cunningham being primed for a big season. That's like you said, that's great news
Yeah.
for Pistons fans. We're really excited about that. So I hopeful, right? Let's hope that's going to be the case.
All right, let's get into our summer review series here. We'll take a quick peek at what a couple of teams, we'll do this on each show. We'll take a peek at what a few teams did during their summer, just to kind of break down where everybody stands, and we're going to kick things off. Keith, this is not hometown bias, or at least not as far as I know.
No, it
Keith
was all
told me
completely
he had
random.
this chosen randomly,
Yep.
but nonetheless, Orlando does wind up being the first team to get their name drawn here.
Yeah, and guys, let us know what you think of the backgrounds here with these things, and we're trying something new to just make it look a little more fun and readable. I think it looks pretty good, but we'll see
Mm-hmm.
where it comes. But yeah, Orlando didn't add and didn't lose a lot of guys. It's mostly running it back with a lot of the same guys. They re-signed Mo Wagner. To a contract. They brought back Admiral Schofield on another two-way. Everybody else was already under contract. Guys they lost, Bull, probably the biggest name out there, but Michael Carter Williams. Yes, the same Michael Carter Williams. If you missed it and weren't paying attention to the Magic in March and April, he did make a return to the NBA at the very end after basically a year and a half after an ankle surgery. Did come back, and then Jay Scrubb, one of their two-way guys. And then they added a couple guys in the draft, and they added Joe Ingles. It brought him in as well. So Joe Ingles, the one veteran signing that the Magic are bringing in, which kind of leads me to they're trying to move forward, right? They're trying to push forward a little bit. They want one more kind of grown up in the room. It's kind of him and Gary Harris. That's their role with this team now. But bring those two guys in as the veteran guys. Ingles is a pretty good passer, guy who can really move the ball, can still shoot some defense. He's probably more of a 4 now than he was. Used to be more of a 2-3 type defender. Now he's more of a 4 and slower threes. And then their two draft picks, Anthony Black and Jett Howard, both first round picks that they brought in. They sold their second round to the Lakers, right? I think, right? Wasn't that where they got the Maxwell Lewis pick from? I want to say it was from Orlando. Or
It
did they
may have
Milwaukee?
been. I gotta. No, I want to say that was Indiana.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they sold it to Milwaukee this time, but they have sold picks to the Lakers a couple times,
Yes,
including the Max Christie pick, if I remember correctly. But anyway, no second rounder, but Anthony Black drafted. He was the higher of the two picks, and then Jett Howard, a few picks later, comes in. They're hoping to hit much like they did with Franz Wagner and maybe kind of Jalen Suggs. We'll see. Kind of a big year for him coming. So not a whole lot done in Orlando, but in a lot of ways, there wasn't a whole lot to do for the Magic.
Well, and so here's the thing, right? Like during the offseason, fans of every single team want their team to do something amazing, right? And so then there's that, the poking with a stick meme. Come on, do something, right? But when you're in the situation the Orlando Magic is in, like you're probably going to get better just organically by your young players getting a year older. So you've got that natural improvement baked in. It's not like you've got a team full of 30-year-olds. You certainly do not. So you're going to have just natural organic improvement. And so you can count on that to be a factor to help propel you forward and to help make up some ground in the standings if you're trying to make a push for things. But you also have to be careful, because if you try to do too much just to say, hey, we did something, you could really derail this whole roster build if you make the wrong move. So while fans can sometimes get frustrated if they see a team that's not making these big flashy moves and come on, why aren't you doing anything? Let's do something exciting. Yeah, that makes for a great story in July, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the correct decision for when the ball is tipped in October. And I think that's the key here with the Orlando Magic. They didn't do anything to set themselves back. They still are in an excellent path to grow organically. And then they can see where things go from here and get a better sense of the team they put together. Now, I do want to ask you, Keith, because Anthony Black, I like him a lot, but this is a team that clearly needs shooting. We saw they took Jett Howard a little bit, significantly earlier in the draft than anybody was projecting. Anthony Black, not a shooter. Was that a bit of a strange pick? Like, how do you see their draft? Like they spent their highest draft pick on a guy that doesn't fit their biggest need, and then took a guy that fits their biggest need, but took him way earlier than anybody was projecting. Is this still a good draft for Orlando, or how do we see that?
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting. That's a great question. Anthony Black, he, just to be kind about it, he doesn't shoot right now. Like
Yeah.
he's a somewhat reluctant 3-point shooter. He only took 2 3-pointers per game in his 3 games in summer league. He did get out of summer league early. He rolled an ankle, and that's why he didn't play more in summer league. But yeah, it's one of those things where you look at this roster and you kind of it screams out like they need consistent shooting. But he's not that guy. He's about 6'7", so he's got that great size. He's got the long wingspan. You can insert that joke about the Magic with most of the guys that they draft. They love the physical profile stuff. So I think with Anthony Black, the question becomes, are we in a spot with him of, do the Magic kind of play him more off ball to start off with a little bit and as kind of a secondary playmaker type guy when he's on the floor, or is he going to get minutes? It's also, I realize, and when I say this, I get it. I fully realize I'm not talking about a team that is, absolutely incredible here, but it's a pretty good guard group. You've got Markelle Fultz and
Mm-hmm.
Gary Harris, more or less the starters. Jalen Suggs will likely start if he's healthy enough to stay in the starting lineup. And then you have Cole Anthony, who's a high minute sixth man for the Magic. So you've got 4 guards already in front of Anthony Black, which says to me he may be playing a little bit more at the 3 early on just to kind of get him in the mix. Now, somebody will be out generally, and that's probably how it'll resolve itself. But we'll see. And then the Jet Howard, we'll see. Last time they drafted a guy a little early from Michigan was Franz Wagner, and everybody is pretty happy with that pick now. So, maybe we're gonna catch lightning in that bottle again, and see how it looks with Jet Howard. But yeah, I think there's a chance. We'll see. He's gonna have to shoot it really, really well to justify his draft status, and I mean like 40+% very quickly in his career. Otherwise, it's gonna be like, all right, what else can you do? So we'll see. But he's a kid who played hurt most of last season. I think they're banking on if he's healthy, he'll be really ready to go.
Well, and you mentioned ball handlers like Franz Wagner, pretty damn good with the ball in his hands too. Like this is so there's a lot of ball handling
And Paulo
capability.
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, this is, I guess, really though, if Anthony Black was the highest player on their board, like we would have crushed them if they had taken somebody else because they were overloaded with a certain skill. Because how often do we talk about how you draft skill over fit, right? Like we talk about that all the time. You take the best player available, especially when you're in the situation the Magic are in. So, if you wind up with too many players who can handle the basketball, okay, figure out who's going to click, who fits, and then maybe you make some moves down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point earlier, where fans look at it and they say this team had 30 million in cap space, they could have got Fred VanVleet and blah blah blah. And I get it, but then one of those guards at a minimum, one, if not more, needs to go because Fred VanVleet comes in and that's a 30-minute a night guy, 32, 35 minutes, maybe a night player. And yeah, maybe he's going to do for them. We'll talk about when we get to the Rockets on another show. I think he's really going to help stabilize a young team and really help them. And he could have done that in Orlando too, to be certain. But I think the Magic are looking at it as we kind of like our guys. Something's gonna come to a head here eventually. Cole Anthony's extension eligible right now. I'm guessing there's probably not one coming for him, but we'll see. And then Gary Harris is a free agent after this season. So that's going to be, something that needs to be worked out. Markelle Fultz is a free agent after this season. So Jalen Suggs is kind of the only long-term guard. And that maybe is where they're looking at, hey, let Anthony Black have a slower rookie year. And then next year, one of these guards will not be in the picture anymore. We'll slide him into the mix there and go with that. But yeah, I mean, this is a team, though, if you look at it, I think a lot of the other teams would say, yeah, I'd take that young talent base to build with. Like Paulo looks really good. Franz Wagner looks really good. Suggs still has a ton of potential. Fultz has played fairly well. I think Wendell Carter Jr., especially on the contract he's on, is a guy I think a lot of teams would love to have. Is their starting 5 because he's just a good, solid player on a great contract. So all around, future is bright for the Magic, even if this is another year of let's see where it kind of goes. If they're healthy, yeah, they can get in the mix for the play-in. I don't know that I would go much higher than that, but I think that's where it could. So, kind of all around, not a bad offseason. Not a great one either, but not a bad one. I don't have any real issue with anything they did. I thought the Ingles pickup was fine. I thought the Mo Wagner contract generally fine. No real issue with that one either.
And my prediction for them would be this is going to be the last year that they're in this situation. That by the end of this season, they're going to have a good sense of what it is, who they want to keep, if they want to
Yep.
move anybody, and what the roster is going to look like moving forward. And then they're going to make some significant moves to take steps forward.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm right on with you. I think this is the last year of all right, who fits, who doesn't. Now we start moving and we
Yeah.
start going. And they could be a team too. If let's say they're playing really well in this in season, they could be a team that could make some big moves because you've got some very
Yes.
tradable contracts, on this team where you could all of a sudden be like, oh, hey, that guy's available. Where if they're like the Cavs were, right, where they stepped forward, or Utah or Oklahoma City last year, where it's like, wow, this team's playing a lot better. And here's the thing with the Magic. Last year they started 5-20, and they finished out playing 500 ball the rest of the way. In the 5-20 start. No, it does all count. I have to remind Magic fans here of that at times. We can't just count the last 2/3 of the year.
Over the
But the
final
reality
3
is,
games of the season.
yeah,
Right.
right. I led this club in ninth inning doubles in the month of August, Mr. Baseball line there. But it is
On days that start with T.
right. The thing is, though, the 5-20 start where Magic fans are right to say, does it count though? They had no healthy guards. That's when they were playing Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner as their starting backcourt on some nights. So yeah, I mean, it was a mess. It was a super messy season. Once everybody kind of returned, things fell into place. This team started playing a lot better. So I think there's a chance they're closer to that pushing towards 500 team than they are that team with the terrible start. And I think that's why we could see them start to climb up the standings in the Eastern Conference a little bit.
All right, let's head out to the Southwest. Let's talk about the San Antonio Wembies, who essentially they won the summer as soon as those ping pong balls came up in their favor, and they got what some are calling the best prospect since insert whatever super hyped player. I think realistically, this is the most hyped player we've seen since Zion. I think that's fair to
Oh,
say.
easily since Zion. Yeah,
Easily since
maybe.
Zion, but some
Yeah,
people are
AD,
projecting
maybe
him to be
LeBron.
yeah. Some people are taking it to a LeBron level as far as the most surefire, like this guy's going to dominate type of thing. But I mean, that's the biggest addition, and maybe that's all that. Like that, we've got plenty of other things to get into, but that may be all that matters. They got Victor Wembanyama, who was the prize in this draft class, and that alone probably makes this a big win of a summer for San Antonio.
Yeah, and I'm going to own here. We have a lot of crossover listeners, maybe viewers for us, listeners for them. With our buddies Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue on Dunked On. And one of the things Danny says all the time that I love is he's like, I'm not going to give the Spurs a lot of credit in the offseason grading process for drafting Victor Wembanyama because it was all luck. And he
Right.
said, so you got the first pick and you didn't screw it up. So now where he will hammer is if they were like, you know what, first pick, we're going to take Keith Smith and draft him instead, right? And then he would hammer him. So I kind of get that. But the reality is we're not doing a grade here. So we'll go nuts over Wembanyama.
Absolutely.
Now, totally fair, did not look good in the first Summer League game. We can all own that. The important thing, I think, that was maybe even missed a little bit, second game, he did look really good. He bounced back and played really, really well. Did kind of everything you wanted to see out of him. And I think you're going to see that be a little bit the way that goes for him in his rookie year. A little up and down, a little, crazy. The one thing the Spurs don't have, and you know what? I missed him on returning players. Trae Jones should be listed there. So that's my fault. I built these slides and I didn't put him in there. But he's the only real point guard on this roster right now. Devontae Graham plays point guard, but he's much more of a scorer. They're trying to kind of make Blake Wesley, maybe Malachi Branham, Devin Vassell. They're trying to give those guys more ball handling duties. Campaign will, I don't even know that I'm convinced he makes the roster out of camp or not, but they don't have anybody who's going to make life super easy on Victor Wembanyama. So I think at times that may be a little messy, and then we'll see where that goes. But there's going to be plenty of nights where he shoots 2 of 14 and can't do anything and looks awful. But there's probably going to be plenty more nights, and probably way more than bad ones, where it's like, oh my God, did you see what Wembanyama did last night? And it's going to be all over every highlight. So I'm super excited for him and excited for Spurs fans.
Who does Wembanyama open the season against?
That's a good
I'm
question.
trying to think of like the best matchups, and that's going to be a marquee matchup for
Yeah.
the NBA.
I mean, we know Denver's going to open probably in the night game on
Yeah,
opening night, right? Because they'll do ring night. Wouldn't surprise me if Denver gets the Lakers. A lot of times they run back that conference finals matchup. So that wouldn't shock me. I don't know. Do you do Wembanyama against the Pelicans and hope Zion's healthy and
oh,
just
that'd be
go
fun.
all out? That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot.
Yeah, I'd
I
love to
like
see
that. I
that.
like that. That would be a good one. That'd be a good one. How about I don't know how much like buzz it would generate. Pun intended. I think it depends on maybe what happens with Damian Lillard, but Scoot versus Wemby
Yeah,
opening night would be
that'd
fun
be
too.
fun too. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and they've gone head to head a couple times now, and it was fun. So yeah,
Yeah,
well, I guess they didn't right that second time. Scoot was out by then, so I guess
right.
we missed out on that. But yeah, man, that would be fun too to see those two guys. It's I don't who knows, right? San Antonio, they try to keep teams closer to home-ish as best they can on those opening night situations. So we'll see. So it doesn't necessarily lock into a Western Conference matchup per se. But now let's continue with the Spurs too.
Yeah.
So they added a bunch of guys. They took on Reggie Bullock's contract, Chetty Osman's contract, Cameron Payne's contract. Those are all deals where they got paid to eat those players' deals in various things. We'll see if those guys are still on the roster. They're +3 right now in standard players, so they've got to
Mhm.
waive at least 3. I feel fairly confident one will probably be Kem Birch, and then who kind of knows? I mean, we know who it won't be, right? It's not going to be Wembanyama. It's not going to be
No.
CD Sissoko. It's not going to be Branham,
Trey
Vassell, Pat
Jones.
Mullins, Trae Jones, Keldon Johnson. All those
Yeah.
guys will be
Yeah.
there for sure. So it's going to be one of these veteran guys here. So we'll see, where that goes with them. They're well under the tax. They did use up all their cap room, so they're over the cap, but 7.7 million in the room exception still left for them. So they could in theory go sign somebody if they really wanted to. But as it stands right now, there's just no roster room, and that's why a guy like Dominic Barlow, who played pretty well for San Antonio at the end of last year and then looked great in summer league, is back on a two-way because they just don't have a roster spot for
Yeah.
him. So it's not the worst place to be, but it is something to keep an eye on. Now, we just talked about it, right? What if a team says, man, what if the Cavs are like, we got to get a third point guard in here? Hey, Cameron Payne, what do you think? You want him? Like, let's work
Yeah.
a deal. We could send him over there or something like that, or Reggie Bullock. And those might be why some of those guys could stick a little later into the season. But we'll see. They've got some work to do here over the next couple of months before training camp wraps up.
Yeah, I like that you brought up Reggie Bullock. $10.5 million this season. He's a veteran wing shooter. That's always going to retain value. That skill set retains value very, very well in this league. Would not surprise me at all if Reggie Bullock is flipped prior to the trade deadline for future stuff because he doesn't fit obviously the timeline given his age at 32. But some playoff teams will be looking. An injury is going to happen. Somebody's going to be looking for a wing shooter. Would not actually, I would be surprised if Reggie Bullock finishes this season on the Spurs roster.
Yeah, it's no chance
No.
is my guess. I think for sure he gets traded. I'll go as far as saying Reggie Bullock, Chetty Osman, Cam Payne, Kem Birch, maybe Devontae Graham. We'll see. I don't think any of those guys are on the Spurs at the end of this season. I
Yeah.
think they're all going to be somewhere else, traded, waived, whatever it is. There, Doug McDermott. We'll see. He did pick to sign with the Spurs, so that one's slightly different. Where they kind of targeted him. Zach Collins again. I just don't know how many people were watching the Spurs after a certain point last year. Really, really nice year. And he's going to start. They already said he's going to be their starting 5. So Wembanyama will be a 4, which means that leaves 3 roster spots to start. Devin Vassell will likely start. Trey Jones will probably start because he's the only point
And
guard.
Keldon Johnson,
Then,
right?
Well, Keldon Johnson already said he may be coming off the bench, and he said, "Hey, I'm open to it. If that's what's best for the team." He kind of said all the right things because I think the idea is Jeremy Sohan probably
Mm.
should be in the mix to start at some point eventually too. So we'll see. I mean, I think we're the co-presidents of the Keldon
That's
Johnson
right.
fan club
That's
over
right.
here.
That's why I
So
immediately go to, well, Keldon Johnson has to start.
right.
Come on. That's
So that
fantastic.
would be my guess, and probably let Sohan play his way into the lineup. But
Mhm.
if you're the Spurs, hey, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? These are not bad things that have happened. And I don't want to go too far with this whole idea with Wembanyama and load management, but I do think they're going to be very careful with him
Sure.
in his rookie year. I think if he's showing any signs of fatigue and wear down, they're going to let him sit, and that's when Sohan will start and other guys, and that's how they'll get through other stuff. But and a lot of it probably depends on how well they're playing too, right? If Wembanyama comes in and is amazing from day one, there's enough other talent on this team that this team could lift themselves into playing contention. I personally think it's probably a year away. I think they're going to need one more year of seasoning and growth, and then it goes from there. But we're getting close.
When you talk about, well, when you go through that starting five, and then you say it's either Keldon Johnson or Sohan is your sixth man, I'm like, that's not that bad. That's
No,
that's not
right?
that's not bad. That's really not,
Just
especially
young.
and this is, health is required. Devin Vassell was not healthy last year and all of that, but I like Vassell. I like a lot of the pieces on this team, and I don't think they have like the 9 or 10 man deep rotation that you kind of need for regular season success right now in the NBA. Like, but that's a pretty good first six where, like, last year it was a lot of, okay, we've got San Antonio on a random Thursday in January. We'll just chalk that one up as a win. I don't think that it's going to be quite the same this year. Not saying they're going to be a playoff team or anything like that. Just saying I think this team is going to be not going to be just a pushover. I think that teams will have to exert themselves to take out the Spurs.
Agreed. And I don't think there's going to be as many throwaway games from the Spurs either, where
Yes,
they go
true.
in and just say, "Hey, we're not playing a bunch of guys here," because a lot of this year is they're like a year behind where the Magic are in their process, who we talked about earlier in the show. Where the Magic, this is maybe the last year of, all right, who fits? Let's figure this out before we push forward. That's part of what this season is about for the Spurs, right? It's about, really, let's figure this out. Now we've got the guy, right? We have Victor Wembanyama. We have the superstar in place that we believe will be that guy. Let's go forward from there, and let's figure out, how do they fit, around him. They're kind of stuffed with wing type players, right? Vassell,
Mm-hmm.
Branham, Johnson, Sohan to some extent. He's more 3-4 than he is, a wing. But you're kind of looking at it and saying, all right, well, what are we gonna kind of do with these guys? Where are we going with this group? And if you go a little further down, like, I like some of their deeper bench guys too. Sandro
Mamuku
Mamuklashvili
Ely.
played really well last year with the Spurs. He had moments with the Bucks,
Mm-hmm.
and then played really well with the Spurs at the end of last season. Now that's caution, right? Good team, bad, good stats, bad team, end of season kind of stuff. Charles Bassier is a guy I've liked at times. I think Barlow, I think they'd love to find a way to get him onto the standard roster. I think by the end of the year, he will be there. So there's guys, even further down that I like with this team. And I think there's a chance, we see this, all kind of come together for the Spurs. But, we're just going to kind of have to see, what it looks like, over the next couple of years. But you're right. You look at some of the names, you're like, I kind of like that guy. I kind of like
Yeah.
that guy. I kind of like that guy. I'll also say fully, just as a disclaimer, as we get into all these, it's August, and I'm kind of feeling optimistic about all 30 teams and
But
what they
everybody,
could
yep.
be and all that. I tweeted it the other day. That doesn't mean I think every team's a title contender, every team's even a playoff contender, but you feel like, man, like, I can see where the future is for this team and those kind of things. So I'm excited to watch the Spurs develop, because I'll be honest, I lost a lot of interest in them pretty early on last year, because not only were they not good, but a lot of the young guys were hurt and not
Yeah.
playing a lot too. And there were times when I'm just like, I'm not really sure what I'm getting out of watching this.
Well, and I think that the way you're feeling in terms of the optimism is representative of how most teams and fans feel around the NBA right now, because everyone has the same record,
Yeah.
right? So everybody's optimistic because we see every player as playing to their ceiling this coming season, right? Like, oh, Devin Vassell is going to be great. He's going to stay healthy for all 82 games this time. And all these things are going to happen. When reality is it's not all going to work out like that. Like every team, just about anyway, every fan base is looking at their roster going, man, we've got a deep team, because you're like, oh yeah, that 10th guy on our bench, he's going to be totally great. He's going to hit his ceiling. He's going to shoot 39% from three. All this stuff's going to happen. And we just know that, for at least a few players, sometimes more on a team, the guys don't click the way that you're hoping that they will. And that's the way the NBA roller coaster goes. So the optimism that you feel, though, is pretty representative. The way things are around the NBA right now, and again, not just fans, but teams too. Everybody is very happy with the summer that they had, and everybody is really looking forward to the season getting started. That will change once the season starts.
Minus Chicago Bulls fans, who I feel like are just completely miserable and are like, why did we not blow this mess up and all that? I'm sure there are Bulls fans that are like, yeah, we're still going to be good. And I think they may take a little while to get themselves feeling a little bit better. But they're the only ones that I see consistently like, man, we stink. And it's funny because they're like, we might be a playoff team, and I'm still not happy about where we are. They're like the old version of, man, we're just chasing the 8th seed, right? Like what it used to be pre-playing. So yeah, they're the only ones I see that are grumpy. Everybody else though perfectly fits what you said, where it's like, man, I think we're here. And it is funny where this is the time of year where too it's like, no, that guy's really good, like we can't get rid of him. And it's like, all right, well, you can only carry 15 standard guys and 3 two-ways this year. Like, you can't have 20, 5 guys on roster going into the season. Some of these guys are going to have to go and get cut. And we get all excited about some guys and then they get cut. And then the league clearly isn't as excited as we were about them. But yeah, I'll take let's be overly optimistic in August over.
Why not?
Let's be grumpy about it. Because why not? Now's the time to dream a little bit.
It's August. It's August. Why not be optimistic? And throw Blazers fans into the mix where they're kind of in a weird limbo right now and all this. So
Heat fans, I think, are just angry right now because
exactly. So there are certainly some exceptions, but the general sentiment, I guess I should say, around the NBA during this time of the year, it's optimism, right? It's optimism for the time being.
Philly fans are just they're just like perpetually cranky, right? Like,
they boo Santa Claus. I mean, come on.
Right? So all right, you want to randomize and pick the next 2 teams?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Let's see.
Oh, I need a drum roll sound effect.
Well, I already ran it, so we'll just do it for today. The Detroit Pistons and the Memphis Grizzlies.
Okay.
Next 2 teams. So,
I like it.
There we go. We're going to keep doing 1 East, 1 West each show. So there we are.
I dig it. All right. Cool. So next up will be Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons, and then we get to talk about Memphis. Oh boy, what could we talk about with that team?
Did you see Jaren Jackson Jr.? I know we'll get into it in the next show, but he was really like, it's he's really fired up about what they could be defensively next year, which is fair, right? You've got him, you got Marcus Smart, you have the last 2 defensive players of the year. You should be fired up.
Absolutely. We'll see where this will take the Grizzlies, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about both those teams on our next show. So everybody watching and listening, make sure you are subscribing, whatever platform that you're listening on. If it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, give us a rating and review over there. And then over on the YouTube channel, make sure you are subscribing, hit that like button as well. And next show, we'll talk a bit about the Grizzlies and the Detroit Pistons, and of course, break down any news that pops up between now and then. Till then, everybody, see ya and stay safe.